everybody. So we are doing a follow-up video, kind of. If you guys enjoyed this video, you guys should become patrons over on Patreon or join our Discord server. So, I guess it is kind of like an update. So last week, or a couple weeks ago, I don't know,
I never got a good look on that guy. His mustache is fucking hideous.
we talked about where Sun goes from here, and that Sun may not be going with Blake. So today we are going to do a similar video about
Has this been controversial?
Ilya. The video? It got a lot of views. Oh, it didn't get that much hate. But people were like, Sun shouldn't abandon Blake because they're in love.
Friends. I mean, I can understand him being like, hey man, like fucking, we are in it now.
I guess.
I think is what they're gonna do.
But people brought up a lot of good reasons for why Sun shouldn't go with Blake, being he has no character outside of Blake. He told Blake to go back to her team, and then yet he won't go back to his team.
I think
there was a bunch of
he's
reasons.
A very one-dimensional character.
Yeah,
but,
and so
and I think there's more to Ilya.
Well, we're gonna get to that, but people brought up a lot of good reasons last week, even in the comments, things I didn't even think of. Like, B said, I don't think Sun would even want to go to Atlas because, like, they're racist against Faunus, first of all, and he'd have to wear, like, you know, better clothes. Obviously.
Also, it's chilly,
like,
you know? He can't show off his abs. What is he gonna do?
He's not a suit and tie kind of guy, and so if they do have to go incognito somewhere, like, she basically listed all these reasons why Sun's personality just does not correspond with Atlas, and so, you know, he may want to stay home. But yeah, we talked about that last week, so now we're talking about Ilya. So I think that we talked about in that video, too, that I thought that Ilya was probably going to go with Blake, but I also have, like, an alternative idea, and so I'd like to get out my alternative idea first and do, like, sort of both, right?
So what's your alternative idea?
I think there's an idea that Ilya won't go with Blake because of what happened to her parents in Atlas, rather than going with her because of what happened to her parents in Atlas. So I'll explain my first line of thinking for the first idea I had, and then this is the alternative one. So, the first idea I had is that Ilya will go with Blake to Atlas because she's the only other character that really has a connection to Atlas. Her appearance there is probably more beneficial than some of the other characters because she's been there, she knows a lot of information about the city, sort of stuff like that. And obviously Weiss has some beef with Jocks, and Ilya probably also has beef with Jocks, so they can both take out their beef together.
We get to see a return of Shitley, which will be fun.
Well, that's unrelated. And so there was a case to be made that Ilya should go with Blake because, again, she's been built up, like, we've basically talked about her parents dying in the dust mine 3 times. One in the Blake trailer, one again when she yelled in the crowd in Menagerie, right? Yeah. Like, where were these humans when my parents died in a dust mine, or whatever she said. And then the other time was in, you know, when Blake was like, would your parents really want this, right? So it's really been hit home that Ilya is from Atlas, right? And so it would only make sense for her to go with them because then she knows all this stuff about the city. She's versed in the schools to an extent, I guess.
Atlas girl.
Obviously has
living in Atlas. Well,
she obviously has beef with Jocks that Weiss can, you know, assist her with, and all of that stuff. And so you kind of have that idea, right? And I think it makes sense just because Ilya is, again, the most developed character that has been to Atlas other than Weiss. So it's probably more beneficial for everyone if she comes with, right? If she is an addition to the cast. So that was sort of my basic idea. So here is sort of what somebody else said. Somebody else said that the reason why Ilya won't go with Blake is actually because of what happened to her parents. So I thought of basically she would go there because of what happened to her parents and try to get retribution for them. But somebody else said that that is why that she will end up staying away from Atlas is because of what happened to her parents, that she doesn't want to go back to the place where there has been a lot of heartbreak for her. And so she will tell Blake that she's not going with, basically. And so I thought that that idea was interesting just because I think that it could go 2 ways. That Ilya at first tells Blake that she doesn't know how she can go back to the place where her parents died and they were caused so much pain and then save the city. And Blake kind of convinces her that this is the right thing that they should be doing and that they should, you know, take down Jocks while they're there because obviously Weiss wants to take back the company, you know, all of that stuff. And so you could say that she's apprehensive at first, but then Blake sort of convinces her that going to Atlas to kind of do it for her family, right, is a good idea. And I think that would be very interesting if Ilia still comes with, but she's apprehensive at first and doesn't want to because of her family. And I think that next season will focus a lot more on family stuff with Weiss's family and then Ilia's dead family. And I think that'll be a good contrast.
Yang going through what she feels about Raven, and even Raven maybe going back to see
Yeah. Like, next volume seems like it's gonna be a family-related volume, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Just because, obviously, you have Weiss's issues with her family. You sort of have people think that we're gonna see Penny's father.
Oh, yeah, Geppetto,
right?
after fucking being teased, like, 2 years ago.
I know, and so I think that at the end of the day, Ilia fits in with the theme of Atlas, which should be family. You know what I mean? Weiss's relationship to Winter, Weiss's relationship to her family, Ilia's relationship to Weiss's family, Ilia's relationship to her parents that have passed away, like all of that stuff, right? It's a nice theme for the volume. And then also the family that you find within a team, right? Because now the team is back together, and I think that's a very good message to sort of send. Right? And also, you know, Emerald losing Cinder, because that's also a family-related thing, too, that she probably considered Cinder family, you know what I mean? Like her only family.
Probably, yeah.
And so it all ties together is what I'm trying to say. So I think that's a good idea for her to sort of, I guess, be apprehensive at first, but then agree with Blake and it's time to go. Or even if Sun kind of convinces her to go either way, but like that's Sun's last thing he does before he leaves the main cast for a while, is he is the one to convince Ilia that he should go with Blake because, or that Ilia should go with Blake because he can't go with Blake and he wants somebody to keep an eye on her that he can trust, right? So that would be Ilia. They could have a nice bro moment, you know? So
bro.
They could have a nice bro moment. So
but and through all this leaving and meeting new friends, we still wouldn't know where Neo is.
And so that's kind of the idea, right? And then the other thing is somebody said that may be the reason why she doesn't come, is that she tells Blake that she can't go back to Atlas and instead she'll help Gira with the White Fang. I see that as a possibility, but not a strong one. They built her up to being from Atlas so much that I don't understand why they wouldn't do anything with that.
Like, all this is about her trying to accept the trauma she's experienced and try to go through the trauma in a healthy way. So I feel like you could...
Yeah, by leaving the White Fang and stuff, you know what I mean?
So I feel like that trauma is not necessarily
and helping
over
Gira is a...
And you can further sort of explore that with her in an Atlas arc.
And Ilia's not, like, it's a noble thing to do to say that you're gonna help Gira and, build the White Fang. And I think that it's a nice thing to help out with, obviously. But I think it's not the most interesting, because for me the most interesting is that if she does have some conflict at first, but then she is convinced and then we go, rather than her saying no and then no just staying at that and we never, like, see her again. You know what I mean? And we don't see her for a while, I should say. Right? I think the most interesting option is for her to have reservations about going at first, and then she talks to Sun, or she talks to Weiss, or she talks to Blake, that she realizes that her and Weiss have a very similar goal in all this, right? Something like that. And so I think that this isn't as much as of an argument as it was for necessarily for Sun leaving or staying. Ilia makes sense to bring along from a writer's perspective. From a writer's perspective. And just, again, with how they built her up so much, I think that it would be criminal to leave her behind. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Like, I think that it would be a poor writing decision, and it would also be more boring. Like, it just wouldn't be as exciting, because we already know how Sun interacts with the main cast, right? Because of Volume 2 and Volume 3, but we don't know how Ilia does, or how Oscar will interact with everybody, because Oscar hasn't re-met Blake yet, I guess you could say. Like, they haven't met again, so to speak, right? And so you have all of this interesting potential with, I guess, the themes of family, the ideas of family, and then also the interactions between these new characters, and you're gonna leave Ilia at home. Like, that to me doesn't make any sense, right?
They'd be missing a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and so I think that they should take all the opportunities given, and I think that a big opportunity for Sun, like we talked about last week, is for Sun to stay in Atlas and prove that he is practicing what he preaches. You know, Blake, you should go back to your team, but haha, I'm not going back with mine. You know what I mean? And so that is sort of, I think, what he should do. what he should do in that regard, I guess. And so that's kind of all I wanted to talk about. If you guys enjoyed this video, you guys should become patrons over on Patreon or join our Discord server, and I guess that we will see you all later. Bye, guys.